All right. I think that we are going to go ahead and get started with our introductions. So thanks everyone who's joined. We'll let the others kind of come in as they can. But we are very excited to talk with you guys all about the success formula for Amazon and really what that means and how to optimize your, Amazon sales through some of the channels that we'll be speaking about today. So Socialfly and Envision Horizons have paired up to put together a really comprehensive ebook that we are excited to share with you guys. And this webinar is really talking to all the points that are mentioned in the ebook. But if you want more information and that really thorough breakdown of everything we talked about today, we will actually be sharing the ebook with all participants today immediately following the call, or somewhat pretty close after the webinar is wrapped. And it's really cool because you guys are getting an exclusive look. It's actually not available to the public for another week or so. So you guys are getting the first look. So really excited to share that with you. Before we dive into everything we have to talk about, just want to give a little bit of background on who Socialfly is, as well as who Envision Horizons is. I'll go first, being from the Socialfly side. My name's Angie Bulletin. I head up the influencer department at Socialfly. Have run several campaigns very specific to Amazon, driving sales, as well as just increasing the product rankings through Amazon. So really excited to talk about how that comes together and how, brands can be tapping influencers more. Socialfly, a little bit of background on us as an agency. We are a female founded and led digital first marketing agency. So we really can do it all, but we definitely specialize in organic social and in influencer marketing, as well as in paid media. We have a really excellent production house also within the agency. So we do have capabilities there as well. I will pass it to Kylie, my teammate, who can talk a little bit more about herself and paid at Socialfly.
Hi, thanks, Angie. So as Angie mentioned, I'm Kylie Castrucci. So I head up the paid media department at Socialfly, as Angie mentioned. So we work with our clients to really support them on all paid media needs, but also exclusively on supporting them in growing their Amazon business. So excited to be here to talk with you all, and we'll chat more as we get to the paid section.
All right, so let's pass it to Todd to introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. Angie, thank you so much for the introduction. My name is Todd Pachowski. I'm Vice President of Growth at Envision Horizons. Prior to this role, just for a little background on myself, I also led the paid media side of the business for Amazon clients at the agency for a year. And now I lead growth and new service initiatives for the company. About Envision Horizons, we're a full service Amazon marketing agency, everything from ops to ads. Been in business for over 6 years. Our objective is really to help brands understand Amazon and ultimately grow on the platform. We manage hundreds of millions in Amazon sales yearly, have clients as diverse as high growth startups to publicly traded companies. We're an Inc. magazine power partner, Amazon Ads Brand Building Award finalist last year. Hopefully we win it this year. And we're a verified ad partner. So that's a little bit about us. Website's there. Contact for a business development person is there as well. If you're interested in Amazon services, please check us out.
Cool. And you'll see our contact information throughout and at the end as well, so that you guys can have several chances to jot that down. Before we get in, we have a little poll that we're going to ask next, but I do want to say we are going to have a bit of time at the end reserved for answering any questions you guys have, but please feel free to drop any questions as we're speaking into the chat, and we'll just make sure to hit those and address those during that Q&A session. But otherwise, let's get into our first poll. So before we do any of the talking, we just want to understand where you guys are at in your Amazon journey. So our first poll for today, we would love you to answer, is on the screen. Is your brand or product currently sold on Amazon? I think it's a no-brainer that most of you probably are selling on Amazon or are interested in selling on Amazon if you're attending this session. We'll let it go for about a minute and then, or a couple of seconds, and then just so everyone can get their votes in. Okay. Can you guys see the results on your screen? If you guys can see the results on your screen, can you just drop a smiley emoji or a smiley face in the chat. Oh, I see things happening. Okay, cool. Okay, so it looks like I was right, and most of you all are currently sold on Amazon. So great to see. So this is definitely going to be really relevant to you guys, and these tips are going to be great for you to implement into your current marketing strategies to make sure that you're doing your most to get eyeballs on your products. All right. So let's dive right in. I'm going to pass it to you, Todd, to talk through some of the next slides.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Great to see we have a ton of experienced sellers here. Today, we're going to talk about a lot of things, specifically diversifying your Amazon traffic. And I think as people and practitioners in the space, we tend to get sidetracked often. We chase the shiny object syndrome, and we look for the newest ad feature or the newest rollout of inventory, whatever it might be, to up our game. And I think it's important just to reiterate that we need to stick to the foundations. And that's the purpose of this ebook. If you take away one thing today, I think that's it. Focus on the fundamentals, focus on the foundation. And those are the 3 pillars of Amazon traffic we're going to talk about today. And don't get it wrong, these aren't the only 3 things that you have to have in order to have a great business. I've managed personally businesses that are doing 9 figures on Amazon that weren't running any paid ads. And I will say that's the exception, not the norm, but it does happen. So it doesn't give the 3 pillars less credence. It just means there's variances to the importance of these pillars, depending on the brands, the objectives, the timing. And just to reiterate, we have a downloadable ebook. We're going to cover a lot of stuff today. We can't go into all the weeds. We would love to, but every participant will receive this after the webinar, as was already stated. So let's get into the meat. The Amazon Flywheel. So I'm sure, and before I lose you, I know this webinar is about external traffic, so bear with me. We're going to unpack a few things, and then we'll get to the external traffic portion. I think this is important to understand, though. Amazon has become one of the most successful companies in the world, and the model it uses is the flywheel. It's not a secret, and any seller who understands and applies it can increase their revenue. And what it is if you're not familiar with the flywheel, picture a massive metal disc mounted on an axle. And your end goal is to get that flywheel rotating as fast as it can on its own. The idea is you need to apply an enormous amount of force to start moving the flywheel. But as you keep turning it, enough momentum builds up that the whole thing begins to rotate on its own. In much the same way, Amazon's growth as a company resembles that of a flywheel. Each step in their growth strategy is a turn in the flywheel that helped the company build momentum to become what it is today. And for sellers and brands on Amazon, the same concept still applies. A product that has momentum tends to stay there as each component feeds off of the other. Sales bring reviews, reviews bring more sales, ads bring sales, more sales bring reviews, SEO brings visibility, more visibility brings sales, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, there's other components that can halt this spinning disc. And chapter 4 of our book really talks about that. Those other components would be pricing, reviews, inventory, because if you don't have stock at the end of the day, there's definitely not a flywheel. It's going to stop the whole thing. So in order to have the best business as possible on Amazon, you need to attend to these 3 pillars. Next slide, please. So we're going to dive into the 3 pillars really briefly. First one is going to be organic traffic, so Amazon SEO. And one question that I saw from someone not long ago was, is there such a thing as Amazon SEO? And it felt so outlandish to me that I had to actually think about it for a split second. And the answer is, of course, there is such a thing as Amazon SEO. That's what I do for my living. And I've explicitly proven this idea or this question wrong by optimizing thousands of products to get to page 1 ranking. And here are some other stats to consider when considering the importance of organic traffic. 70% of Amazon customers never click past the first page of search results. So what does that tell you about the importance of being on page 1? Number 2, 35% of Amazon shoppers click on the first product featured on the search page. And then just the last one here, 81% of clicks are on brands on the first page of results. So it's pretty important to be there. The question is, how do you actually get to page 1? And let's go into a few of those tips on the next slide. The first way to really start understanding Amazon SEO is to start to think like a search engine. Amazon is obviously a search engine. You type in a query and you get results based on those inputs. And the short version of how you optimize it, and this is the short version, you add in relevant keywords to your listing, and you have a better shot at showing up to the top. That's the short, simplified version. The long version is much more nuanced than that. Requires diligent testing, strategic placement of those keywords, selection of the right keywords. You have to review the marketplace competition to assess where the most opportunity is. You have to have acknowledgement of what terms are trending or not. You have to pair that with your organic strategy. There's a whole list of things there. I'm not going to go through them all, but I do want to give you a few quick tips. So number 1, your title is your most important place for terms and carries the most weight for influencing rank. Number 2, and I see this happen a lot with our clients, they neglect mobile. So it's very important to consider 60% of traffic on Amazon as an average comes from mobile these days. The third thing, use your visual elements to lean into your target keywords. So can you add terms to your visuals to help convey congruency? So you have a sponsored brands ad, the headline leads into the product page title, leads into the terms that are in the images, and that signals congruency and helps make that conversion. Those are just a couple of tips. I don't have the time today, and I know they won't let me blabber on about SEO for this whole webinar. So do check out our ebook. We also have 40-point checklists that we use internally at Envision Horizons to help with SEO specifically. Amazon ads. So this one's a love-hate relationship if I ever knew one. The right advertising strategy can take your product from obscurity to front page visibility in a matter of days. And it can also take your business from profitable to in the red overnight. And so the question is, how do you balance out media spend with your brand objectives? And the first thing to point out is, one, you need an ad strategy. In 2023 on Amazon, you absolutely need an ad strategy. It is a vital pillar. And not only that, you need a sophisticated ad strategy, and your ad strategy has to be paired with your organic strategy. And maybe a bad analogy, but ads are like a spark to your flywheel, or maybe better, spark to an engine that allow the motor to start spinning. So it allows your new obscure product to have a spark or flash of visibility and prove itself in the wild. A question we often get is, do we need to run ads on Amazon? Or maybe better, how big of a media budget should we have in relation to our total sales? And the answer to the first question is yes, you absolutely need to be running ads. Amazon's pay to play. And a study I saw recently showed varying levels of correlation between sponsored plays and organic correlation. So what that means, if you're running ads, you're going to have a correlation between how you rank organically. This is very different than what you see on Google. Some categories were as high as 70% correlated. And to the second question, how big of a media budget do we need in relation to sales? And that varies from mature brands where they can be spending 3 to 10%, and more high growth brands that might sit in the 10 to 20% range, or net new brands, Amazon, that might be 30% and above at the outset. So let's briefly touch on just what these ads look like, and then we'll get to the external traffic stuff. There are 3 major ad types you'll come across on Amazon. 90% of the listeners here probably only need to worry about these top 3. DSP, the video ads on DSP, and the audio ads, that's display programmatic stuff. They're important, they have their place, especially once certain leveling has happened with the other ad types, but that's a topic for another conversation. Our breakdown at the agency typically sees about a 60%, 70% of budgets going to sponsored product ads, 20 to 30% going to sponsored brand ads, and the rest for sponsored display. And just very briefly, I know there's a lot of sellers here, you probably know most of this, but sponsored product ads are on the ones that show up on the top when you search. They look just like a PDP thumbnail, but they have the sponsored badge. The big creative headline ads, those are the sponsored brand ads, and display show up on the PDP in various places. I think the important takeaway here is just that emphasize ad types that hit high intent searchers first, and you really want to maximize your Amazon spend first before you really start considering external traffic. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so we made it to the topic that you're all here for, I'm sure. And one thing I want to say before we get into this a little deeper is, if you really want to understand the dollar importance to Amazon of bringing outside traffic to its website, it's best summed up with the brand referral bonus program. I'm going to touch on that later, but that's a 10% credit back on referral fees. Essentially, Amazon's willing to lose 10% cash in its pocket for each purchase or each referral that makes a purchase. So it's a super important feature for Amazon, and they're realizing the benefit of this external traffic, and they're going to give you 10% because of it. You have to understand that the flywheel speed and continued momentum is constrained in the other two pillars. So we talked about SEO, we talked about paid media on Amazon. Those two pillars, they often reach a place of limited expansion on Amazon. Search terms only have a limited volume, and you only ever reach a certain peak there. Ads can also cap out at some point based on the amount of bidders for the term or searches for the term and the cost. But external traffic is sort of limitless, and maybe not totally limitless, but definitely less constrained than the first two pillars. And the big thing here, I would say, is external traffic is less competitive. I'd guess, and maybe I'm wrong, and I know you're sophisticated sellers that are all here, but I'd guess that 90% of sellers aren't intentionally sending external traffic to their Amazon page. And those that do get a leg up on the spinning momentum of the flywheel because they have more power continually pushing it. So before we go into that poll real quick, I just want to mention one other thing, because there's a lot of questions and concerns about sending external traffic. A question we get often is, why would we do that? Doesn't make sense. We'll cannibalize our sales from our D2C. And I think it's important just to note this one last thing. Amazon is an acquisitions channel. And if you're not where your customers are, you risk potentially losing them. Your D2C is not separate from Amazon. They should be viewed holistically as both places being places your customers like to be. So with that, we can move on to the poll. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. So I'll be speaking next in regards to external paid media. Angie has put up a poll that we'd like you guys to take part in, just so we can get a feel for how you all have used paid media externally before, or if you haven't. So I'll give you guys a couple, maybe another like 10, 15 seconds, and we'll see. And if anybody has any troubles with the polls or anything in general, I just wanted to also mention, please feel free to put those struggles in the chat. And we have somebody who in the background is kind of keeping an eye on things and making sure everything's working technically. So if you have issues, just let us know. All right, well, we have 72% participation, so we will kind of conclude here. So looks like the results are 56% of people have used paid media outside of Amazon to support their Amazon sales, and 44 have not used paid media. So much more of an even balanced mix. So
and I was way off. I'm sorry to interrupt, but just want to call out that I was definitely wrong here.
Maybe this is probably a hyper-focused audience, so maybe it doesn't speak to the whole.
We got some smart sellers here. That's great.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so hopefully by the end of my section here, maybe I will convince that 44% of the value of bringing in paid traffic externally. So just to piggyback off of a couple things Todd said. So, what Todd really ran through was all of the paid media that can be utilized on Amazon. But as Todd mentioned, right, Amazon is not a limitless ecosystem. People naturally go there, they use it all the time, but there is this whole wide internet that exists outside of Amazon, where we have people who are interested in buying and in market to buy, that we have to drive them to the Amazon site. So that's why I'm so passionate about paid media and making sure we utilize it to drive Amazon sales. So just to give you guys a very high spiel, because most of you probably know, paid media is really the utilization of different marketing channels like television, radio, different digital platforms to drive traffic to somewhere or to get someone to take action on something. So we will talk, if you go to the next slide. What we're going to talk about today is really on the digital paid media that can be run to drive external traffic to Amazon. So I want to caveat this entire conversation by saying that what will work for your brand or for your business is very likely to be different than what works for your neighbor or your competitor, right? The secret sauce to building a good paid media strategy to support your Amazon sales is to find what works for you. So in reality, we have to get a little bit comfortable with being uncomfortable, knowing that we're going to have to try a lot of things, see how it goes, and then finding that right mix of paid media channels and tactics that work for each of us. So I just want to call out a few sort of commonly known platforms that can drive external traffic. So can everyone raise a hand if you know what Google is? A virtual hand. I just really want to see if you're paying attention. All right, I see a couple. Okay, good. Everyone's still with us. Yes, so Google Ads. So those are the ads that exist in the search engine results pages, right? So when you go and you're looking for something and you go to Google and you type in, I need a new lipstick or I need a new pair of shoes, right? And then you see those sponsored listings come up. Those are your Google paid search ads. They are a very strong channel to support your Amazon business because it's very intent-based, right? If I'm going to the search engine and I'm typing in something like, I need a new lipstick, I need new shoes, I'm telling you that I'm in market for those products. My intent is super, super high. So by bringing that type of traffic from external onto Amazon, you're bringing really highly qualified users to the marketplace that is Amazon. So it's a great place to bring external traffic. And then I'm going to mention a couple of social platforms that I think also are very successful at bringing in external traffic. So Facebook and Instagram. So for those of you who know, Facebook and Instagram are both owned by Meta. So a lot of times you'll hear it be referred to as Meta, but they are separate platforms. And then TikTok. These are, I think, the three most currently utilized social platforms to drive traffic. And there's a couple reasons. So on these social platforms, right, when you sign up for an account, first of all, you solicit a lot of your information, whether you know you've done it or not. You tell them your gender, you tell them your age, you tell them where you live. So right off the bat, these platforms have a lot of good information about you. And as you use those platforms, they will continue to build on that profile of who you are, what you like, what you're in market for. And so then we have the ability to capitalize on that information and target our ads to users based on criteria that we know is really qualified. So I can go out and find the Angies of the world who are currently looking for a new lipstick because she has done things online that has, allowed Meta or Facebook to deem that Angie is in market for cosmetics. So again, those are just a few of the most commonly utilized platforms, and what works for you in terms of how you allocate, in terms of what mix you use, is really going to depend on your brand. All right, now we're going to talk a little bit about some strategy and creative. So running external ads is not just a set it and forget it, right? It's very important to put a lot of thought and strategy into the messaging that you're putting in front of these users, so you're not wasting that impression. So a couple of things that we really suggest as some best practices. So again, you want to utilize multiple advertising platforms. in tandem, because hitting people where they are in multiple places on the internet is what's going to give them the most impactful impression of your brand. You really want to make sure that you are defining your target audience, right? They use the term pray and spray. We don't do that, right? We want to make sure that we are using the insights and the knowledge that these platforms have about users to make sure that we're targeting the ads in a way that we are going after qualified users for ourselves. When it comes to creative, I think it goes without saying, but use compelling visuals and copy, right? Tell the users what you want them to do. Don't make them do mental gymnastics. Nobody likes that, right? You want to be very clear, to the point, tell them what they're going to get from it, give them the benefits, give them the features, make them walk away from that impression with no other choice but to move forward. Their call to action. And then really what it comes down to is testing and optimizing. Don't launch a set of ads and then just move on, right? You want to make sure you're looking at what's working, identifying why it's working, and then building additional creative and ads that really go in line with what is working for you. And next slide. All right. This is, in my opinion, the most important piece of paid media. If you aren't accurately measuring and tracking the performance of your campaigns, you are literally just lighting money on fire, right? If you don't know how these ads are performing for you, how can you know where your money is best spent? So when it comes to Amazon, there are a lot of great features on the back end to be able to track your external paid media campaigns in a way that gives you visibility from the impression all the way through to the sale. You need to make sure you are leveraging that, because if you don't have that full funnel attribution, your guess is as good as mine as to whether or not it's working. And then you want to believe the data, right? The data is there to give you the insights, is to help tell you what direction to move in. So look at the data. What is working best? What is not working well? What I always say is never be married to anything. You might have had a great idea for a campaign and it might bomb, and that's okay, right? You just really have to rely on the data. So that was my paid media spiel. I'll pass it back over to Angie and she'll touch on some influencer marketing as external traffic.
Awesome. If you guys had any questions about what Kylie spoke about and what Todd spoke about, feel free to just drop them in the chat and we will address them during our Q&A. Or you can just hang on to them and we'll just address them in real time. But also, of course, ebook that we've mentioned throughout is going to be available for download after this call to you guys exclusively before we open it up to the rest of the world next week. So we really dive into each of these subjects a little bit more. Okay, but now let's get into influencer marketing and how you can utilize influencers to drive traffic to Amazon. Before we get into that, I just want to see how familiar you guys are with influencer marketing and if you guys have even done programs yourselves. We'll give it a couple of seconds so you guys can all get your answers in. Right, one more second. I think we can go ahead and end it. Okay, so it looks like somewhat familiar is where we're at, which is awesome to know that you guys have already, either dipped your toe in or at least began educating yourselves on influencers. So let's talk about influencer marketing. I think as a part of influencer marketing, we are really able to look at what we're doing in the influencer space in general and apply it and make some customizations to make it more impactful for Amazon selling. So just as like a backup of how influencer marketing is really beneficial for Amazon, there's really three things that it does. So one, it's an extremely effective tactic at increasing brand awareness, and it's really going to draw eyeballs and just make people aware that these products are even available on Amazon. It's also really key to use these partners when looking to build credibility and trust. It's something that when you're pushing out branded or you have a lot of branded efforts happening, sometimes the audience is still a little bit apprehensive about the products themselves. And using influencers in conjunction to paid media and also, just SEO tactics allows for a really well-rounded program and marketing campaign that really hits all angles and drives that credibility through an unbranded voice. And then, of course, boosting sales. A lot of people actually believe that influencer marketing is a high funnel tactic. It is. It's definitely effective at doing all the stuff at the top, but it's also really beneficial at boosting sales, and specifically sales in Amazon. There's so many ways to partner with influencers who have their own storefronts on Amazon, who are regularly talking about Amazon, and that's what their audience really wants to hear. They want to see those Amazon products. And so finding that right partner can really, really boost your one-to-one sales directly from those partners. And then, just a little stat here, as many as 56% of social media users purchased a product after seeing a post from someone they follow. It's even higher depending on what industry, as well as the type of influencer that you're, working with, or the just general vertical and type of product you're selling. We definitely see that influencers drive sale, and having that conversations happening on social media is effective. Okay, so let's talk about what to think about for an influencer campaign. These are definitely going to be applicable to Amazon and non-Amazon campaigns, but at the start, really you want to understand what your objective is. We mentioned on the last slide how influencers can support your goals, but knowing and going into a campaign, prioritizing which of those goals is your number one definitely impacts the type of influencers you choose, and even the type of content you're asking the influencers to create. You also definitely want to make sure that you have your target audience pinpointed. You can actually use tools to assess and analyze influencer channels so you can understand exactly who they reach and choose partners that are speaking to your right audience. You also want to choose an influencer that creates content that's really relevant to the product that you're trying to sell or relevant to your brand. So they should feel like you are, in the same world. They should be speaking about those products. Their audience wants to know and craves to learn about products like what you're trying to push out to them. So having influencers that are already talking about, like subjects is definitely going to increase your chances of converting and also driving the right objectives. So looking at the type of content that's really going to maximize your results, it's important for influencers to be doing a couple things here. And again, we go more specifically on all the stuff in the ebook, but just to give you guys a high level idea of what you should be thinking through as you're developing the content process. Want to make sure that influencers are aligning your key messaging or their content with key messaging and like those mandatory messaging. While they are doing that, you still want the content to be developed in their voice and their tone. We find that a lot of brands are just looking to use really heavy sales information or really heavy branding within influencer content, and that's actually not going to be authentic. We want to make sure that Amazon and that, that end medium to purchase is mentioned, but everything else is just a really hype up about the product, but through the influencer's voice. You want to also make sure that the content is designed in a way that meets goals, whether that is more storytelling for an awareness campaign, or if it's more CTA based, if you're looking for like driving hard sales. We typically see that storytelling and that awareness campaign push is going to be crucial, at least as a part of the campaign, for any newer brands or newer products, right? That don't have established presence already in audience feeds. For brands that are more established or products that are, have already been around for a while, we do find that it's okay to really lean into CTAs in that buy now messaging. It's really cool because there are influencers in the space, because they're constantly posting about products on Amazon. Even for unknown products, there's a little bit of CTA and driving conversions right off the bat, just because that's the way that their feeds typically function. So you can get away with a little bit more sales heavy messaging depending on the product and influencer. You want to make sure that all the assets are really formatted for the individual social channels. You never want, we of course can repurpose some videos across multiple channels like TikTok and Instagram Reels, for example. But if you're creating an Instagram story, you want it to be a unique asset that lives in their story and that really feels like it was created for stories. The audience will relate to it more, and it'll also just do more good in terms of driving that external traffic. We want everyone to be, authentic. We want them to not feel overly scripted. All the content should be developed in a way that is, looks professional. Sometimes scrappy content is okay, but we typically see that at least some element of professionalism does drive better results. And then you also want to be using, proper tagging, hashtags, and there's a whole linking strategy that's very specific to Amazon that we'll talk about in the next slides. So the content is very important, but the influencers are just as important. We talked about making sure that they're really relevant. You want to make sure that you're choosing your influencer. There's, of course, budgetary restraints. So working with a really large influencer is going to be more expensive than working with a super small influencer. That said, we do choose the size of influencer based on the goal. So we typically see that larger influencers are really great for driving that awareness factor and that buzz, but we also see that micros and mid-tier can kind of do a combination of driving that conversation while still driving those really high engagement rates. So a lot of our campaigns, especially specific to Amazon, are really going to be focused on influencers that can drive awareness and drive traffic and that engagement. And those tend to be the mid-tier and micro level. Nano is going to be more for like word of mouth campaigns. We don't typically see them as being as high converter or traffic drivers as some of the other tiers. We want to make sure that they all have really strong engagement rates, no matter the size. But again, as you work with larger influencers, their engagement rates do typically tend to drop. And for that, that's one of the reasons why we don't recommend them for necessarily driving as much external traffic. And we want to make sure that within their feeds, that content aligns with brand aesthetic. We want to make sure that we're looking at their past collaborations so that they haven't worked with competitors, and also, making sure that who they have partnered with in the past kind of aligns or is within the same ballpark as your own brand. And then I mentioned cost being a factor. Definitely micros and mid-tier are going to be a more cost-effective option than working with like a celebrity. Okay. So this is probably the most important part of working with influencers and driving to Amazon. It is your linking strategy, and it's something that people don't understand in the influencer space. And there's just a couple key things that you can do for your influencer programs that are going to maximize your results and not only give you that awareness and a buzz around a product and, educate people that it's available on Amazon, but this is actually going to drive one-to-one sales. And it's where you're putting your links and how you're using them. So number one, if you're familiar with Instagram, you know that there's Instagram stories. Instagram stories has historically been where people add a sticker so that people, their followers can link out directly to a product page. We always recommend linking directly to a product page whenever possible, because then it just increases the user experience and allows them to have that one-to-one sales, less barrier to those sales. So we definitely recommend for any conversion driving campaigns where you guys want to see more traffic, integrating those links into influencer stories. It's a very easy, quick add. One thing that's oftentimes neglected is asking influencers to add a link in their bio that, again, drives directly to either the influencer storefront or the purchase page itself. This is something that, again, a very easy ask and very easy to be implemented into influencer programs, but a lot of brands are not doing it. And that is, no matter if it's TikTok or Instagram, increases traffic and sales incredibly. Influencers also, if they're Amazon specific influencers, many of them do actually have their own storefronts where they're able to feature their favorite products or any products that they've mentioned in their social feeds directly on their storefronts. We typically do recommend and see stronger results when partnering with influencers that actually have their storefronts already developed and already have storefronts versus influencers who, they feel right in terms of the content that they create and the style of content, but they don't have this. Both can still be used to drive traffic. It's just that we usually see the folks with storefronts converting more. So we try to prioritize those partnerships over non-storefront influencers. We also always want to make sure that if there is a capability to put linking in caption, so platforms like Twitter or even YouTube, where you can actually include links directly, do that when you can. It's just that traditional channels like Instagram, they really don't have the opportunity to do that. And that's where linking in bio becomes really important. Something that I think people ask us about a lot and want to know about a lot is using affiliate or attribution links with Amazon. And this is very important and something to be looking at and thinking through, because not only is it a way for you to, encourage the influencers to post, but it's also a way for you to get more data and analytics around what's happening when the influencer does post, and to see if they actually and to track their converting. So an affiliate link essentially is a link that you provide to an influencer, and when they use that link and a sale is made directly through that link, they will receive a portion of the sales because they are getting credit for that one specific sale. Influencers, if they have a storefront or if they are an Amazon influencer, they're actually able to develop those links on their own through their own channels. And after the fact, provide you with a screenshot that shows the total number of sales so that you're able to document that for reporting. You then do not need to do anything from there. You do not need to give them a portion of the sale. Like, that is all funneled through Amazon itself and through the back end. Your role is simply provide them with a product, and then see their results after they've posted. Influencers oftentimes are posting those affiliate links on their own, and you do not even need to ask them to if they can use the link, because it's just an incentive for them to post, because they'll get a portion of sales for all the sales they make. Attribution links is it's the same concept. It's that typically we're having the brands themselves pull the attribution links for the influencers. So the great thing about attribution links is that because the brand is creating them and providing them to the influencers, the brand is then able to see the sales themselves and have all the data at their fingertips, versus relying on the influencers to, provide that information after the fact. Okay, so I talked a little bit about analyzing influencer results and how that works for the attribution links. There's really, of course, sales is a big factor in analyzing results, and also just the actual link clicks and traffics that are driven, like the volume metrics there. But in addition to that, we do want and recommend looking at traditional influencer metrics like engagement rates and reach, and even impressions, as a part of your reporting process. So engagement rate within the social channel is going to be a key indicator that these, influencers are even going to be worth working with if they already have high engagement rates on their channels, because it means that their audience is more engaged and more likely to take an action. We also see that reach rate, which is, it's an engagement rate, but it's specific to the influencer's story. This is also a really good indicator that their audience is highly engaged in their stories and is more likely to click out. So definitely things to consider before you even partner with an influencer, but they're also definitely important to consider after you partner with an influencer and analyzing your results to see hey, is this influencer really the influencer that's going to do work for us and is going to be able to drive that traffic? Because when they're posting about us, their engagement rate is either high or low. If it's low, you wouldn't want to continue partnership with them. So you can pull a lot of this data through, again, attribution links, affiliate links, and influencers are able to provide the data if they do have their own storefronts. We also definitely ask for any social metrics. So like if they're posting on Instagram and we want to see their Instagram results, we always ask them to share their screenshots of the post, because they can give us that data directly. Socialfly uses a tool, and you'll see that it's very common in the influencer industry to be using a separate tool that influencers authenticate through. It isn't through Amazon, it's through a completely separate tool, but those tools allow us to also have that transparency and be able to have that access to the influencers channels. So if you're considering doing a really big long-term program or influencer marketing initiative, we do recommend utilizing a tool just so that you have all that data at your fingertips. Outside of that, of course, we would always recommend UTMs or tracking, but when we're speaking specifically to Amazon, it's more so the affiliate links and attribution links that are going to get you the information that you want. All right. So I am going to pass it back to Todd to see us through.
Yeah, thank you. And that attribution link is super important. We're just going to touch on it very briefly at the end as well. So thanks for all that content. Makes me have to go back through and read all this. So much to learn. I want to talk just real briefly on the best ways to drive external traffic to your listing that are free. So a lot of sellers may not think about this, but you can and should use earned media placements to direct to your Amazon PDP or storefront. For example, any publicity or exposure your brand gets on like TV features. Maybe you don't always want to do this, but at times it does make sense to swap out those links, maybe not to your D2C, but to Amazon to spin the flywheel. If cannibalization is a concern, or maybe your team, your leadership isn't open to the idea, an idea could be to create an exclusive product that lives on Amazon only. And we do recommend this for a lot of our D2C clients that are concerned about cannibalization. If you have a product that's specific to Amazon, that helps kind of with that argument. Using earned media to direct to Amazon doesn't have to happen with every link either. You can vary it up from time to time. Another great way to drive traffic for free is organic social. You can highlight deals or specific promotions to Amazon. And we often see products that get the bestseller badge or huge spikes in growth over weeks from posts that go viral to Amazon. And you have to remember that there are 150 million Prime members in the US, and I guarantee you some of them only shop on Amazon. They might be in consideration phase, but showing them a buy on Amazon offer could push them to make that purchase. So yeah, let's talk about email real quick. The other method, of course, that's free. Obviously, you've worked hard to get that audience, so it's not necessarily free, but email lists are gold. If you've gone through the painstaking task of collecting the audience over time, you have a curated audience that's interested in what you have to say. And we often have our net new brands to Amazon push out a blast within the first few weeks of launch to help spin the flywheel. And it looks like this. It's brand registry setup, inventory, Vine reviews, a few more reviews, and then that email blast, and simultaneously turn on ads. And all of those things together give you a real solid boost for the honeymoon phase or the first 60, 90 days on Amazon. And just a quick note on the messaging with emails. It can be as simple as, we're on Amazon, come support us if we have a loyal following, or it can be discounted based. It can be, hey, we need your support. Come be our first customer there, get 20% off your purchase. And one other tip is, if you have a stale or segmented audience that just hasn't engaged in that list recently, consider sending them the list. Maybe they're, preferring Amazon as a shopping channel, and that could work. Okay, so last slide, best for last. Kylie mentioned this earlier. Measurement is probably the most important thing. We're going to spend all this money and effort, so let's make sure we actually get something from our results. And if you made it this far, thanks for sitting through. I mentioned it briefly, but not only can your listing and brand benefit long-term from sending external traffic to Amazon, you can also get cash back in the short term. So to do so, you have to do a few things. You have to be enrolled in brand registry. You need to enroll in the brand referral bonus program, which just takes a few minutes. And then you need to use those Amazon attribution links to track the traffic you are sending to Amazon. If you do the above, Amazon will give you a 10% back on purchases It does vary a little bit depending upon category, but at the agency, we like to think of this as free media spend and budget to test external traffic. And that concludes our presentation today. I know there was a ton packed into this. Please go and check out the ebook for more details. And to finish, I just want to mention, if you're a brand looking for an Amazon ops or marketing agency, we're offering a free growth audit for qualified brands and a free 30-day trial to our analytics software, My Horizons. And if you're looking for another agency for paid media, Socialfly, I'm sure you want to talk about yourselves here for a second.
Yeah, so I can kick it off. So as Angie mentioned earlier, we at Socialfly, we are a full agency. So again, we support our clients in creative strategy, paid media, creative development, influencer, organic social. So if there are any ways that we can help support you all in your business growth, we'd love to also provide a complimentary audit. So we are available for that as well.
Awesome. Well, we have just a couple minutes left. If we want to if there's any questions, feel free to drop them into the chat. We'll give you guys like a minute or so to do so. And then we can kind of go from there. It's been awesome chatting with you guys though, or at least chatting to you guys.
And feel free to come off of mute too. Don't feel like you have to put things in chat. You can come on camera, come off mute. We are here to have a conversation and dialogue.
Hi, can I ask a question?
Yes, Jeff, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jeff Coluccio. I am the owner and operator of a pretty cool tea company on Amazon that we launched called Nora about 4 months ago. We manufacture, not drop shipping, so we have the economies to work on Amazon. And we really designed the company to be an Amazon exclusive brand with the plan of driving off-site traffic towards our Amazon store to capitalize on that referral fee and all those benefits. And we've recently engaged in our influencer plan. So like we're just doing our first TikToks and Instagrams and all that. And we signed our first 2 micro influencers. One had about 50,000 followers, the other had about 65,000. And we are going through our first launch campaign of this content. And we are really trying to wrap our arms around conversion rates. I've spoken like at very, very high levels with like industry contacts I have at like major like modeling agencies that have like Kendall Jenner and stuff, like 25 million followers. And I'm hearing conversion rates at one level and then say, call it like, I don't know, 0.25%. So like from total number of followers to sales. And then I'm speaking to other people who have ranged that up to as much as 2% from total followers to sales. So we're really focusing on developing kind of like a perfect basic strategy here to execute this so we can at least try to get conversions within that range. But our first post was a little bit of a flop, and I'm kind of wondering what we did wrong there, where we didn't even come close to those conversions.
Number one, I love that you guys are using influencer marketing. One thing that I would say is that it's very hard to put all your eggs in one basket for influencers because sometimes an influencer won't convert in the way that you want them to. And so that's why we typically recommend almost like a testing phase where you guys are able to partner with a number of even micro and mid-tier influencers. Like I would say you could even go smaller than the size that you are working with and go closer to like 10 to 35K and do some more testing and partner with more people so that you don't have all your eggs in one basket. I would say that making sure that your linking strategy is on point, making sure that you're partnering with people who are, making sure that the influencer is extremely relevant and that their audience aligns with the audience that you need to sell to. That's going to be huge. So assuming
that we check those boxes, meaning there's a lot of trial and error. We don't know exactly who's going to like what yet, but we kind of have an idea on target demo and the types of partners that we need to go after, right? So assuming that we crack that code, because I feel like that's what part of this is not just throwing money at a problem and just hoping it works. You have to be very specific.
Right.
What could we expect from this type of or I guess reach to sales? Like, is there?
I would say the hard part for influencer marketing is that you can't expect to go in and reach like the going in and saying like influencers between 10K and 50K will get you can expect to see a conversion rate of 1%. Like that doesn't exist in the influencer space.
Yeah,
And I definitely we can't do that, because like what you're hearing about it being all over the place is the exact reason why we don't set benchmarks around that. Also, a lot of things happen with the way the APIs function on each of the platforms. So some content will take off and go viral, and you want to optimize your assets to go viral. And a lot of times that leads to the most sales. And that's where, from like an influencer standpoint, like we've seen, if you're working with one or two influencers, you basically have to hope that they go viral.
So if Socialfly, if we're sourcing influencers, like we're pounding the pavement, we're reaching out to them, we're doing all that thing, right? But we're definitely lacking from like a strategy setting standpoint once we sign these influencers. Is this something that Socialfly can help us with?
Socialfly can help with literally every part of it, or any part of it that you need. So we do A to Z, or whatever part of the A to Z that you guys need assistance with.
Okay, so yeah, so if we do talent sourcing and content sourcing, basically, we would be able to figure something out.
Correct.
Okay.
And Jeff, sorry to interject here, but I just wanted to also mention, I think when it comes to expectations around like a conversion rate, what I would suggest is prove your concept with whitelisting. So because, right, when you're using influencers, it's an organic tactic. And so, maybe your influencer is outputting the right content, but for some reason their current audience or the current community is just like not exactly where you need it to be. But if you run it through paid, right, you can take that content and you can target it based on different demographics and behaviors.
That's boosting posts. That's what you mean. That's what it's called.
So there is boosting and there's whitelisting. But yes, so whitelisting would be where it's coming from that person's profile, but it's amplified beyond their community. And so through that, you could start to get some gauges around what a conversion rate should be for your brand. Because to Angie's point, it's so dependent on so many things. But you could start to get an idea of, okay, well, when we whitelist content from this influencer, we typically see conversion rates around X. When we whitelist from this influencer, we typically see conversion rates around Y. And you can start to build those benchmarks for yourself internally. And also, your content goes further. So keep whitelisting in mind too, which is something that we at Socialfly absolutely support brands in.
Understood. Okay, I'm done taking up your time. Thank you so much. We'll be in touch.
Sounds great.
Awesome. Well, we are at time right now, but if anyone else has any questions, please go ahead and send it to us. Our contact information is at the bottom of this slide. We'll leave it up for another couple seconds, but it was so great speaking with you all, and we really enjoyed sharing our thoughts.